Voices from the bamboo forest. My grandfather told me that bamboo has ears. He said the forest remembers every word ever whispered inside it. I thought he was speaking poetry. I was wrong. Last week, I walked into the bamboo grove behind my grandmother's house. The stalks were wet from the morning rain, and as I stood there, listening to the silence, I heard my own voice calling back to me. Not from ahead, from behind, from a place I had not yet walked. The voice was saying words I had not yet spoken, words I would not speak for another 3 days. When I finally said them, standing in my kitchen at midnight, something answered from the forest, something that had been waiting. My name is An, and I am a translator of ghosts. That is not my real job. My real job is teaching English at a small school in Ho Chi Minh City. But my grandmother raised me on stories, old stories, river stories, stories that made the hairs on my arm stand up. And somewhere along the way, I learned to hear what other people could not. I learned to listen to the spaces between words. I learned to translate silence. When my grandmother fell ill, I took leave from work and traveled north to her village. It was called Lang Tre, Bamboo Village, named for the ancient forest that surrounded it on 3 sides. The 4th side opened onto a slow brown river where water buffaloes slept in the shallows and egrets stood like white lanterns in the rice fields. My grandmother lived alone. My mother had moved to the city years ago. My father was a photograph on the altar, a young man with my eyes, killed in a fishing accident before I was born. The house was small, wooden walls greyed by decades of monsoon rain, a tin roof that sang when the wind blew, and behind the house, pressing against the back fence like a wall of green knives, the bamboo forest. I arrived in the late afternoon. The light was golden and soft. My grandmother sat on the porch in her rocking chair, a blanket over her legs even though the air was warm. Her hands were folded in her lap. Her eyes were closed. I thought she was sleeping. "Grandmother," I said softly. She opened her eyes. They were the same dark brown I remembered, sharp, clear, older than the mountains. "You came," she said. Not a question. "I came." She nodded toward the bamboo forest. "Have you heard them yet?" "Heard what?" "The voices." I looked at the bamboo. The stalks stood tall and straight, their leaves rustling in a breeze I could not feel. The sun was behind them, turning the green into black silhouettes. "I just arrived," I said. "I haven't heard anything." "You will." She pulled the blanket tighter, and then she told me something that I wrote down in my journal that night, word for word, because I knew, even then, that it was important. "When I was a girl," she said, "the elders taught us never to speak our true thoughts inside the bamboo forest. They said the bamboo listens, it remembers, and sometimes, on quiet nights, when the moon is hidden, the bamboo gives the words back. Gives them back how? Like echoes, but echoes from the future. You hear something you have not yet said, a confession you have not yet made, a secret you have not yet told." She paused. The bamboo rustled. No wind. "And if you are unlucky," she continued, "you hear something that someone else will say, something that will change everything, something that should never have been spoken at all." I wanted to ask more, but my grandmother closed her eyes again, and her breathing slowed, and I knew she would not answer. So I unpacked my bag. I made tea. I swept the floor, and I tried not to look at the bamboo forest as the sun sank lower and the shadows grew longer. The first night was quiet. I slept in my mother's old room, a small space with a narrow bed and a single window facing the forest. The moonlight filtered through the bamboo stalks, casting striped shadows on the wall. The insects sang, the river murmured, and somewhere, far away, a temple bell rang once and then fell silent. I dreamed of my father. I had never dreamed of my father before. I had never known him well enough to dream of him. But in the dream, he was standing in the bamboo forest, wearing the clothes from his photograph, a white shirt, dark pants, sandals made of old tire rubber. He was not looking at me. He was looking at something on the ground, a woman's sandal, blue, worn at the heel, my mother's sandal. In the dream, my father picked up the sandal. He held it to his chest, and then he spoke. The bamboo took her voice first, then it took her. I woke up gasping. The room was dark. The moon had moved behind clouds. The shadows on the wall were gone. But I heard something, a whisper, from outside the window, from the bamboo forest. Not words, not yet, just a sound, a soft rhythmic exhale like someone breathing through a mouthful of cotton. I lay still. I did not move. I did not breathe. The whisper stopped. Then it started again, closer, and this time it had shape. Sorry. A single word, faint, almost imagined. I'm sorry. I pressed my hand over my mouth because I recognized that voice. It was my mother's. The next morning, I asked my grandmother about the dream, about the voice. She was sitting on the porch again, shelling peas into a clay bowl. Her fingers moved slowly, deliberately, as if each pea required careful thought. Your mother left this village when she was 18, my grandmother said. She said she could not stay. She said the bamboo was too loud. Too loud? She heard things, voices, arguments, laughter, crying, all from inside the forest. But when she went to look, there was never anyone there. I sat down beside her. The morning light was pale and cool. The bamboo forest cast long shadows across the yard. Did she ever go into the forest? I asked. My grandmother stopped shelling peas. Her hands went still. Once, she said, the night before she left, she walked into the bamboo and did not come back until dawn. When she returned, her clothes were wet. Her hair was full of leaves, and she would not speak to anyone for 3 days. What happened in there? My grandmother looked at me. For a long moment, she did not answer. Then she said, your mother heard her own voice, but the words were not hers. They were words she would say years later, words she had not yet spoken. And one of those words, she paused. One of those words was your father's name. My father. They had not met yet. He was still a fisherman in the next village. But the bamboo knew. The bamboo knew she would meet him, would marry him, would love him. And the bamboo also knew. She stopped. Her lip trembled. What did the bamboo know, grandmother? That she would lose him, that the river would take him, that she would spend the rest of her life saying his name to an empty room. She resumed shelling peas. Her hands were shaking. That is the curse of the bamboo, Al. It does not show you the future to help you. It shows you the future to hurt you. Because knowing what will happen does not change what will happen. It only makes the waiting unbearable. I could not stop thinking about my mother. I had not spoken to her in 5 years. She had left Vietnam when I was 20, moved to America with a man I did not know, started a new life I was not part of. The calls came less and less, then stopped altogether. I told myself I did not care. But lying in my mother's old room, listening to the bamboo whisper at night, I realized I had been lying. I cared. I cared so much that it had turned into a stone inside my chest. A stone I carried everywhere. A stone that grew heavier with each passing year. The second night, I decided to go into the forest. My grandmother was asleep. The house was dark. I put on my shoes, grabbed a flashlight, and walked to the back fence. The bamboo towered above me, 30, 40, 50 feet tall. The stalks were thick as my arm, smooth and green, spaced so closely together that I had to turn sideways to slip between them. The flashlight cut a narrow path through the dark. The beam trembled as I walked. The ground was soft and damp, covered in fallen leaves and the sharp needles of bamboo sheaths. I walked for 5 minutes, 10, 15. The forest grew denser. The light from the village disappeared. The only sounds were my breathing and the crunch of leaves beneath my feet. And then, silence. Not the silence of absence, the silence of listening. The bamboo was listening to me. I stopped walking. I held my breath. And from somewhere ahead, somewhere deep in the darkness where my flashlight could not reach, a voice spoke. Ah, my name, spoken in my own voice. I did not answer. Ah, come here. I need to tell you something. My voice, my exact voice, the same pitch, the same rhythm, the same way I paused between syllables. My skin turned to ice. What? I whispered. The forest answered immediately. I know why Mother left. It wasn't because of the man. It was because of me. I stared into the darkness. My flashlight shook. I said something to her the night before she left, something I have never told anyone. What did I say? I asked, and I realized, even as I spoke, that I was asking my own voice a question about my own memory, something I should have known, something I had chosen to forget. The bamboo whispered back, "You said, I wish you had died instead of father." My knees buckled. I caught myself against a bamboo stalk. The wood was cold and smooth and alive. I could feel it pulsing like a vein. I remembered everything. The argument, the slammed door, my mother's face, pale, exhausted, the face of a woman who had been drowning for years, and my words, my cruel, unforgivable words. She had left the next morning, not because of the American man, because of me. I had driven her away, and I had buried the memory so deep that I had convinced myself it never happened. The bamboo had not given me a future. It had given me a past I had stolen from myself. I ran back to the house. I burst through the back door, gasping, tears streaming down my face. My grandmother was sitting at the kitchen table. She was not asleep. She had been waiting. "You went in," she said. I heard my voice. I could not finish. My grandmother stood up. She walked to me slowly, her old hands reaching for my face. She cupped my cheeks and looked into my eyes. "The bamboo does not lie," she said, "but it does not tell the whole truth either. It gives you a piece, just one piece, and it makes you believe that piece is everything." "What do you mean?" "Your mother did not leave because of what you said. She left because of what she said back." I shook my head. I don't remember her saying anything. Of course you don't, because she spoke the words inside the bamboo forest, and the bamboo took them, stole them, kept them for itself. My grandmother sat me down at the table. She poured me a cup of cold tea, and then she told me the truth. The night before your mother left, she walked into the bamboo. She spoke your name, and then she spoke a secret, something she had never told anyone. Something about your father, about how he died. How did he die? My grandmother's eyes filled with tears. He did not die in a fishing accident, Anne. He died because your mother called him home. She was lonely. She was pregnant with you, and she missed him so much that she stood at the riverbank and called his name. Not to the water, to the bamboo, because she had heard that the bamboo could carry voices to the dead. I felt the world tilt. She called his name, and the bamboo carried it. But the bamboo does not know the difference between the dead and the living. It carried his name to the river. And your father, he was alive. He was still alive. He was fishing upstream. When he heard her voice calling him, he turned the boat toward home. And the current, she could not finish. The current took him, I whispered. The bamboo killed your father, Anne. Not the river, not the accident. The bamboo. It took your mother's voice and used it to call a living man to his death. I stared at my grandmother. The candle on the table flickered. The bamboo rustled outside the window. So when you said what you said to your mother, my grandmother continued, she did not leave because she was angry. She left because she was afraid. Afraid that if she stayed, the bamboo would hear her voice again. Afraid that it would use her words to hurt someone else. She left to protect you. I buried my face in my hands. All those years, all that silence. I had thought she abandoned me, but she had been protecting me from the forest, from the voices, from herself. The third night, I went back to the bamboo, not to listen, to speak. I stood at the edge of the forest, where the first stalks rose from the dark earth. The moon was full and cold. My grandmother stood behind me, holding a lantern. "What are you going to say?" she asked. "I'm going to ask for my mother's voice back. The bamboo does not give things back, Anne." I stepped into the forest. The stalks closed around me. The darkness swallowed the lantern light. I walked until I could no longer see the house, until I could no longer hear my grandmother's breathing, until the only sound was the soft rustle of leaves, a rustle that sounded more and more like whispered words. I stopped at a small clearing. The moonlight filtered through the bamboo, painting silver stripes on the ground. I closed my eyes and I spoke. "Bamboo," I said, "you have taken my mother's voice. You have taken my father's life. You have taken my memories and twisted them. I know you can hear me. I know you are listening." The rustling stopped. "You want words. You collect them. You hoard them. But I am not afraid of you anymore." I opened my eyes. The bamboo was moving, not with wind, with intent. The stalks were leaning toward me, bending at angles that should have been impossible, their leaves brushing against my arms, my face, my hair. And then a voice, not my voice, not my mother's voice, a voice I had never heard before, old, dry, the voice of roots growing through soil, of wood splitting under pressure, of seeds sleeping for 1,000 years before waking. "What do you offer?" I reached into my pocket. I pulled out a small photograph, my mother's face, young and smiling, holding me as a baby. "I offer a name," I said, "the name you have wanted since the beginning, my father's name." The bamboo trembled. "Speak it." "No, you will give me my mother's voice first, her real voice, the words she spoke the night she called him. Then I will give you the name." The bamboo was silent. Then, from somewhere deep in the forest, a sound, a woman's voice, crying. "Ah, I am sorry. I am so sorry. I called him home. I called his name. I did not know the bamboo would listen. I did not know it would carry my voice. Please forgive me. Please." The voice broke, sobbing. My mother's voice, young, desperate. The voice of a woman who had just realized she had killed the man she loved. Tears ran down my cheeks. "Thank you," I whispered. I took the photograph. I tore it in half. I dropped the pieces on the ground, and I spoke my father's name. "I will not write it here. I will never speak it again." But I said it, once, clearly, into the heart of the bamboo forest. The forest screamed, not with sound, with pressure. The air compressed around me. The stalks shook, the ground trembled, and then silence. The bamboo straightened, the moonlight returned, the insects began to chirp, The forest was empty. It had taken the name. It had what it wanted. And for the first time in 40 years, it was satisfied. I walked out of the bamboo. My grandmother was waiting. She did not ask what happened. She simply took my hand, and we walked back to the house together. I left the village the next morning. My grandmother was sitting on the porch. She did not say goodbye. She just smiled and waved, her hand small against the rising sun. I walked to the bus stop. I did not look back at the bamboo, but I heard it. One last whisper, so faint I almost missed it. Thank you. Not my voice, not my mother's voice, not the old voice of the forest. A new voice, a man's voice, gentle, kind, my father's voice. He had been trapped inside the bamboo for 25 years. His name had been a cage. When I spoke his name, I did not give the bamboo power. I gave my father freedom. The bamboo took voices, but it also held them. It held every word ever spoken inside it, every cry, every confession, every last goodbye. And when I spoke my father's name, I opened the door. He walked out, not as a ghost, as a memory that would live in me now, not trapped in green stalks and dark soil. I carry him with me, and I carry the lesson the bamboo taught me. Words are not harmless. Words have weight. They can wound, they can kill, they can call the dead and trap the living. But words can also set us free, if we are brave enough to speak them, if we are honest enough to mean them, if we are strong enough to face whatever answers from the dark. The bamboo forest is still there. It is still listening. It will always be listening. So be careful what you whisper. Be careful what you confess. Because the bamboo has ears, and it remembers everything.